Hello and welcome back. So today we're going to go over the top fantasy performers from week 8, but in order to qualify for this list, they have to be under 50% ownership. Otherwise, I'd just be sitting here talking about Connor McDavid and Jason Robertson every single week. So I'll be choosing 3 forwards, 2 D and 1 goalie, and perhaps 1 or 2 honorable mentions, but these are the guys who are red hot heading into week 9. So let's start by going over the 3 forwards, and right off the bat, we'll go with a player I covered in the week 8 video last week and yesterday as a streaming option for Sunday if you follow the Data Draft Instagram account, and that is Dylan Cozens. Now, Dylan Cozens had a week for the ages. Everyone's talking about him, but this wasn't completely out of nowhere. You'll recall that in the week 8 video, exactly 8 days ago, I mentioned the Quinn, Cozens, Peterka line as being the second best line for the Sabres this year, and they were breaking out in week 7. Then I recommended you grab Quinn and Cozens for this past week as they had a 4-game schedule. Now, if you took that advice, in the 4 games last week, Cozens got you 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points, 3 power play points, and 17 shots, good for 4.25 shots per game, which is insane. Now, that Quinn, Cozens, Peterka line has been playing really well and getting second-line minutes, and on top of all that, Cozens is getting time on PP1, where he gets exposure to Dahlin and Thompson, who are 2 of the best fantasy players this year. Now, speaking of Jack Quinn, he also had a great week. 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points, 1 on the power play, and 7 shots. So not quite the same shot volume, but an excellent shooter who can score goals with the best of them, and he had 2 last night as they defeated the Sharks. Now, this week, the Sabres play Columbus, who is second worst in the league in terms of goals against. Then they have a home-and-home on Friday and Saturday with the Penguins, who are ranked 12th worst in goals against. Tristan Jarry is playing very well lately, 6 straight starts above a .915 save percentage, but Casey DeSmith has struggled, and he'll be in net for one of those games. So Cozens and Quinn could be good waiver options this week despite the 3-game schedule with a back-to-back. But if you took my advice and streamed them last week, they've already paid off for you and likely helped you win your week. Now, our second forward that absolutely went off last week was Max Domi, currently only 34% rostered, 3 position eligible, which is very rare and helps your positional flexibility. It helps him get in your lineup more often, and he did have a great week on top of all that. So 3 games, 4 goals, 1 assist, 4 power play points, 11 shots, good for just under 3 shots per game. And if you look at the game log, back-to-back 2-goal games against the Oilers and the Rangers, and then the whole team got shut out by the Isles yesterday. But a great 2-game stretch for Domi, who has been having a decent season. He's probably trying to play his way into some trade talk as he only signed a 1-year deal in Chicago, and they may look to recoup some of the assets at the deadline. Now, this could also increase his value if he does get traded to a better offensive team, but we'll have to monitor that because he's getting all of the offensive situations now in Chicago, and that seems to be benefiting him. So 24 games, 19 points, 10 power play points, all very good numbers. Though Chicago only plays twice this week. They have 1 game against the Devils, who are pretty much impenetrable at this point, and then 1 against the Jets, who are second in the Central Division, 2 points back with 2 games in hand. So this may not be the week to grab Domi, but keep this in the back of your mind for a heavier week for Chicago, and you could keep him in mind for daily or weekly streams. But he had an excellent week as well. Now, the third forward this week who went off was Kasperi Kapanen, who is much more available on the waiver wire at only 3% owned. 3 games, 4 goals, including a hat trick on Saturday against St. Louis, 1 assist, 2 power play points, 10 shots, and an impressive 10 hits. And this basically tells me that he's finally engaged in the game. When he's hitting that much, that's kind of the signal that shows me. Now, he has 10 points in 16 games this season, but he has missed some time in the month of November. And these, the 3 games that he's played this past week were the first games back since injury. So it seems to have hit a reset button in him. And that could be a good, harbinger of what's to come for the future weeks for both Kasperi Kapanen and Pittsburgh, who desperately needs some more depth scoring. Now, full disclosure, I've never considered him for fantasy. He's just too inconsistent, and he's not worth the roster spot most times. And he did just have a massive 2-game stretch. So the question is, can he keep this up? Well, he has Columbus and Buffalo twice this week. So Columbus is second worst in the league in goals against, and Buffalo is 10th worst in the league in goals against, and they're missing one of their starting goalies. So there could be some more production this week for Kapanen. I just won't be going there because my 12-team league format means there's probably better options on the wire. But if you're in a 16-team league or above, this does become a much more attractive waiver ad and something to keep an eye on for daily streams as well. Now let's look at the 2D getting it done in week 8, and I just did a bit of a comparison in the week 9 schedule video between Sean Durzi and Drew Doughty. They have very similar stats, yet Doughty is 95% owned while Durzi's 35% owned. So if you want to check out the full breakdown, you can watch just that section of the week 9 schedule video, go straight to the timestamp, and you can check that out right away. But this past week, Durzi had a great week, and it was 1 goal, 3 assists, 3 power play points, 6 hits, and 6 blocks in 3 games. Very consistent production if you look at the game log. And that's what I like to see in terms of a longer-term hold. With a daily streamer, sometimes you want to find a guy who can pop off like Kapanen did for a hat trick on a particular night. But for longer-term holds, you want to see that consistent production, and that's what you've been getting from Sean Durzi. So on the year, 24 games, 16 points, 8 of those on the power play, and he's covering hits, blocks, and shots as well. Not crazy, but solid peripheral coverage. LA has 4 games this week, and 3 of their 4 games are against teams in the bottom 10 in terms of team goals against. So there will be an opportunity for Durzi to keep this going into week 9. I would definitely recommend you pick him up, especially if you lost Morgan Riley to the IR and you need a replacement, or if you need power play production from your blue line in general. Now, our next defenseman is something completely different, and he's definitely a specialty tool, but he is the best at what he does, and that is Alec Martinez. So Martinez is a shot blocker. That's what he excels at. He has 110 blocks on the year, which is 34 more than David Savard, who's second place. Now, most of the guys in the top 10th percentile in blocks are in the mid-50s. Martinez has double that. And last week, he actually was slightly below his season-long average of 4.23 blocks per game. But he had 11 in 3 games. So he's very consistent. He's not necessarily going to be a hits and blocks D because he only has 16 hits in 26 games this year. So you may be able to find a better category coverage defenseman who can do both. But the ones with the most blocks who fit that bill are guys like Provorov, who's 56% owned, Jacob Trouba, who's 84% owned. So to get Martinez, who has close to double the amount of blocks and only 26% ownership, this could make you untouchable if you have blocks as a category, or give you a nice consistent couple of points per game in a points league with blocks. And that's a specialty tool that you're going to want to monitor, especially if you're in a categories league with blocks as a category. I'm in one of those. Martinez is a great streaming option, especially if you're midweek and you find yourself down and he's got 2 or 3 games towards the back end of the schedule. That could potentially save that entire category for you that week. Now, as we move to the goaltending, our goalie of the week goes to Pyotr Kochetkov, who had an incredible week for the Canes. 3 games, 3 wins, 2.11 goals against, and a .934 save percentage. A very good week to go along with a great season so far. 8 starts, 5-1-3 record with a .227 goals against and a .919 save percentage. And those are essentially elite 1B numbers, and something that the Canes might have to think about when they get Freddie Anderson back healthy. Now, Anderson was on the ice the other day working with the goalie coach, but head coach Rod Brindamore said there's no timetable for either him or Pacioretty until they start attending full practice in regular jerseys. Now, the other problem with adding Kochetkov right now is that the Canes only play twice this week, so even if it's a little while before they get Anderson back, you're likely not going to get the starts you need this week. This is more of something to monitor as the season continues and keep in the back of your mind for a spot nightly start or a streaming option for a week if they have a 4-game schedule. If you're ever in a pinch and you need a start from a goalie, that's when you remember this guy and pick him up as soon as possible. And you can see the game log, very consistent production, 938, 909, 939. So he's definitely getting it done for the Canes, and the Canes are a pretty good defensive team as well. Now, honorable mention, there is a goalie. There's 2 honorable mentions this week, one who's under 50%, one who isn't. But we'll start with Dan Vladar, 23% owned. Last week, 2 starts, 2 wins, 2.00 goals against, and a .935 save percentage. which is very good. And as I mentioned in the Week 9 schedule video, Calgary not only has 4 games this week, including a back-to-back where Vladar will likely get a start, but they also play 11 times in the next 19 days, meaning they'll be forced to use Vladar a couple of times in that stretch, especially if he's outperforming Jacob Markstrom. Now, if you're watching this on Monday before the game, he is starting tonight against the Coyotes, which is another nice streaming option if you want to quickly pick him up. That would potentially give you 2 starts for Vladar this week, and you could hold on to him for a few weeks, basically until December 23rd, when that stretch ends. They have 11 games in 19 days from now until then. So this is a weekly pickup that you could use for Week 9, but you could also hold on to him for the foreseeable future and potentially ride this into December. But he's had a pretty good week and not the best record in terms of the season-long performance, 3-4-1, but a .915 save percentage and a .261 goals against nonetheless, so he's not playing bad at all. The last guy I wanted to touch on is Joel Eriksson Ek, who is 58% owned, so just above that threshold, which is why he's an honorable mention, but he's likely available in shallow leagues, and he had an excellent week. 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points, 3 power play points, 14 shots, and 4 hits in 3 games. So averaging almost 5 shots per game this week, but that's not all. So he's currently on a 6-game point streak with 10 points in those 6 games. And if you look at the season-long numbers, there's even more to like. 24 games, 22 points, 9 goals, 13 assists, 8 power play points. He's got a shorthanded goal, 39 hits, and 76 shots, good for 3.16 shots per game. And finally, the icing on the cake, in face-off leagues, he's a must-own. 215 face-off wins on the year, good for almost 9 per game. And if you're like me and you're in a league that gives you 1 point per face-off win, that's an incredible floor between the face-offs, shots, and hits that he adds per game. You're likely getting 9 to 12 points per game minimum. And then on top of all that, you get the offensive production that comes as the icing on the cake. In fact, in that face-off points league I just mentioned, Eriksson Ek is ranked 21st overall. So incredible value if you can find him on your waiver wire. But even if you're not in a face-off league, there's plenty of shots, offensive production, and power play points to make him a longer-term target. But yeah, this is the list. These are the guys that have been getting it done. Obviously, there are others who have been getting it done. McDavid, Draisaitl, Robertson, all those guys who are definitely owned up. But hopefully you got some value out of this. If you like this kind of content, let me know in the comments below. Maybe we can make this a weekly thing on Mondays, give you a better sense of the trends as we start our fantasy weeks. Be sure to like, subscribe, consider joining the Patreon group in the description below. Follow on Instagram @data_draft for more daily content, and I'll see you in the next one.